Sydney in 1935 was living with a particular kind of fear. After a series of shark attacks along New South Wales beaches, the sea itself seemed to have turned into a public enemy. So when a large tiger shark was caught off Coogee and placed on display at the Coogee Aquarium Baths, the animal became a spectacle. People came not just to look, but to stare down something they had recently learned to fear. Families filled the area over the Anzac Day holiday. Children leaned forward, adults pointed, and the shark circled in captivity, as if it had been turned into a seaside attraction by chance and by timing. Then, in full public view, the mood changed. The shark slowed, seemed ill, and suddenly vomited into the pool. What came out was not sea debris. It was a human left arm and hand. Doctors soon established that it had not been bitten off by a shark, but had been cut away with a blade. One detail immediately stood out. The forearm carried a distinctive tattoo showing two boxers facing one another, a small mark that would become the most important clue in the case. Newspapers spread the story across Sydney. The image of the arm and the sheer strangeness of how it had been found drew in police, readers, and eventually one family who feared they recognized what had been described. Because the arm was so well preserved, investigators were able to use fingerprints. That moved the case from spectacle to identification, and from identification to murder inquiry. The victim was identified as James "Jim" Smith, a former boxer and billiard saloon operator who had also lived around the edges of petty crime. He was not a stranger pulled from nowhere. He was a man already known in certain circles. Those circles mattered. Smith had moved through parts of Sydney where illegal betting, small fraud, and underworld connections overlapped with ordinary business life more often than polite society liked to admit. One important name in that world was Reginald Holmes. Holmes was a successful boat builder at Lavender Bay, outwardly respectable, yet according to investigators, also tied to smuggling and other unlawful activity. Smith had worked around Holmes, and by 1935, the relationship appears to have become strained. Investigators later believed that money, secrets, and distrust had begun pressing in from all sides. Another figure came into view as police pulled on the threads: Patrick Brady, an ex-serviceman and convicted forger, a man whose name fit naturally into the same uncertain company. Police later examined allegations linking Smith, Brady, and Holmes through fraud and underworld dealings. In that version of events, the case was not random violence. It grew out of a world where loyalty could be temporary and silence could be valuable. In early April 1935, Smith told his wife he was going fishing. Instead, he was last known to be in Cronulla, in the company of Patrick Brady. Witnesses placed the two men at the Cecil Hotel, drinking and playing cards. It sounded ordinary enough at first, but ordinary scenes often become important only after someone fails to return home. From there, attention turned toward Brady's rented cottage in Tooloomba Street. Police would later allege that Smith was killed there. What happened inside that cottage was never fully proved in court. But from that point onward, Jim Smith disappeared, and the rest of his body was never recovered. A key witness later said he drove Brady by taxi from Cronulla to Holmes's address at McMahon's Point. That journey mattered because it appeared to connect the disappearance directly to Holmes. The driver described Brady as disheveled and frightened, and said he kept one hand in his pocket and would not take it out. It was one of those small details that made a larger story feel darker. Holmes at first denied knowing Brady. That denial only heightened suspicion. If the men truly had no connection, why did the evidence keep pushing police back toward Holmes? Inside the Criminal Investigation Branch, detectives began assembling a case from fragments: names, movements, statements, rumors, and whatever physical evidence they could still rescue from a very unusual crime. Searches took place around Port Hacking and Gunnamatta Bay, locations police suspected might hold the missing remains or other evidence, but the water gave them very little back. And that became the central weakness of the case. Police had a severed arm, a missing man, and suspicious connections. What they did not have was a body, a clear scene, or a complete confession. Then the investigation lurched into even stranger territory. On 20 May, Holmes went into his boat shed and attempted to take his own life. The attempt failed, and what followed sounded almost unbelievable. Holmes ended up in a speedboat and led police on a chase across Sydney Harbor before he was finally stopped. After that, Holmes began talking. According to police accounts, he agreed to give evidence against Brady, and suddenly, the case seemed as though it might be moving toward a usable prosecution. Holmes alleged that Brady had killed Smith, dismembered the body, and later shown him the severed arm while demanding money. These were serious allegations, but they remained allegations, not proven facts in a final judgment. Holmes also reportedly said that he himself disposed of the arm in the surf at Maroubra. If that account was true, it helped explain how the limb entered the sea before finding its way through a chain of predators into the aquarium shark. For prosecutors, Holmes was becoming the witness who could hold the whole case together. Without him, much of the story would remain circumstantial. But on the night before he was due to give evidence, Holmes withdrew a large sum of money, left home cautiously, and drove away into the dark. Early the next morning, Holmes was found dead in his car at Dawes Point, shot at close range. The man who might have strengthened the case against Brady was now dead himself. On the very same day, the coroner's inquest into Jim Smith's death opened. That coincidence gave the case an even more extraordinary and unsettling public atmosphere. Smith's relatives appeared, and the proceedings became more than a legal event. They became a public spectacle shaped by grief, rumor, and the strange fact that the case had begun in an aquarium pool. Forensic evidence was examined, including the arm itself, but the fundamental problem remained: the rest of Smith's body had not been found. Brady's lawyer, Clive Evatt, seized on that point. He argued that an arm did not amount to a body, and that without proof of death in the legal sense, the case itself rested on unstable ground. Whether the public found that persuasive or absurd, the legal effect was serious. Holmes was dead, the evidence against Brady was heavily circumstantial, and the prosecution's case had been badly weakened. Brady was charged, and the matter went before the Central Criminal Court. But in September 1935, Chief Justice Jordan directed the jury to acquit him. So the legal ending was unmistakable, even if the moral or historical ending was not. Patrick Brady walked free. No one was convicted of Jim Smith's murder, and Holmes's own killing was not solved in court either. That is why the shark arm case still holds its place in Australian true crime history. A shark delivered the clue, police uncovered a hidden world behind it, and yet the courts never produced a final answer.